So, a warm good evening, everyone. Welcome to the second day of the International E-Conclave. This is a wonderful Sunday once again, and we are all of us are here gathered to learn about yet another very interesting topic, very commonly used in India, on nicotine replacement therapy. Last Sunday, we talked about non-nicotine-based solution for smoking cessation and tobacco cessation. It was on varenicline and bupropion. Today, we're going to cover on lozenges, gums, and transdermal patches, which are extensively and exclusively used in India, and I think across the globe, to help people quit this habit. So I would like to thank all the organizers of this e-conclave, our chief patron, Rotarian Kalyan Banerjee, our patron, Dr. M.C. Mishra, our chairperson, Dr. Nimesh Desai, our co-chairperson, Dr. Rakesh Rawal, our convener, Dr. Pawan Gupta, and co-convener, Dr. Prashad Sethi, who is also the moderator for the evening today, our academic director, Dr. Reenar Kumar, and the entire team of I Can Care, IHBAS, and Gujarat University, who have really made this event very successful. This event is supported by a lot of organizations, and I thank each of the representatives from different organizations who are here with us today. I thank ISO, FHNO, Indian Chess Society, Delhi Psychiatrist Society, CMHARTS, RHGAP, RSD Hospital and Research Center, ISD, IDS, and Santosh University for making this event really successful. Thanks to our pharma partners, Tobacco Nil from Ruzan and Low Smoke from JB Chemicals and Triscare from Icancare to have supported this event to make it really successful. Now, without taking much time, so now I'm very pleased to invite Dr. Johnson Pradeep, who is the chairperson for the first scientific session, which we are going to have an overview about understanding NRT. Sir is an associate professor of psychiatry from Medical Ethics and Institutional Ethics Committee at St. John's Medical College, Bangalore. He has 16 international and 25 national publications and 8 book chapters to his name. He's a certified tobacco cessation specialist. He has won the ITOP Must Enrich Research Grants Award for Psychiatry Teachers. He's editorial board member for Journal of Addictive Diseases, involved in the ICMR for international research studies, and a lot more things to his name. I'm sure the sir is going to really enjoy this session. So I invite Pradeep sir to the session.
Thank you, Shruti. It was a great introduction. And I would like to introduce today's speaker, Dr. Manushree Gupta. He's Associate Professor, Department of Psychiatry, Vardhaman Mahavir Medical College and Safdarganj Hospital. He is a member, National Expert Committees for Guidelines on Treatment of Substance Use Disorders, Government of India. He is an editorial board member, 2 international and 1 national journal. He also has special interests in addiction psychiatry, depression, HIV, and diabetes. Many publications in national and international journals. And he is a joint secretary of Delhi Psychiatric Society. He is a member, institutional ethics committee member at VMMC and Safdarganj Hospital, New Delhi. It is a great pleasure. And today it's a very interesting topic he's going to talk about, understanding nicotine replacement therapy. We all know that nicotine replacement therapy is one of the armamentarium in of all the medications what we have so far in smoking cessation. And it has been found in the recent Cochrane review that 15 to 35% of people have high quit rates with NRT and higher dosages, and they're very found to be very effective. And also it's very useful and has the least side effects. And also it has been found to be in different forms. For example, it can be found as a chewing gum. It can be found as a nasal spray, different metered nasal sprays, and also transdermal patches. So without much delay, I'm going to handing over the dais to Dr. Manushree Gupta. All the best, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Pradeep, for the introduction, and I hope that I can do justice to the introduction that you just gave. And thank you for the organizers for having me here. It's a great platform to talk about tobacco cessation. I'm happy to be here. Special thanks to Dr. Nimesh Desai, who's one of the co-hosts of this program, for his invitation to speak on today on tobacco cessation and especially NRT. So during the course of this presentation, I would be briefly introducing the audience to nicotine and the nicotine dependence neurobiology. It could be a very brief introduction. Then we'll go over through what is exactly NRT, what are the basic principles, the type of NRTs, the nicotine replacement therapy that is in use today, and I'll briefly go over the evidence base that is present, the state of the art for nicotine replacement that is currently in our midst. So, nicotine, this innocuous molecule, as you can see on your screen, is a simple carbohydrogen with a nitrogen molecule. This moiety is responsible for far more than 5 million deaths around the world. And unfortunately, more than 5 billion smokers are there. 1.2 billion smokers are there in the world. And unfortunately, half of them will die due to tobacco related complications over the next 10 years. So you can very well and appreciate what we are dealing with, this innocuous moiety. This is not a carcinogen as opposed to tobacco and its other constituents. So cigarette smoke has other carcinogens. More than I think 11 carcinogens are listed in the WHO category of category 1 carcinogens. Nicotine is quite addictive when inhaled or delivered by tobacco, and cigarettes are a potent nicotine delivery system. So NRTs and tobacco cessation therapy, the research has been mostly done in patients who have conventionally smoked cigarettes. In our country, the situation is a bit different because smokeless tobacco products are also quite prevalent in our country. So approximately 1 milligram per cigarette is delivered to the brain. Each average cigarette contains about 10 to 12 milligram of nicotine. Of this, 1 milligram is delivered pretty soon to the brain. Whenever one takes a puff, within 10 seconds, that nicotine surge happens in the brain. So its addictive potential is similar to cocaine and heroin. Now, what are the factors which play a role in smoking and addiction? The addiction to nicotine is a consequence of the speed and magnitude of nicotine delivery. And cigarettes are the best delivery mechanism that is known to man for nicotine currently. Clearance of nicotine largely takes place through the kidney, and the cytochrome P1A2 enzyme is responsible for its metabolism, and its chief metabolite is cotinine. Its effect on the brain, I'll elaborate briefly in the following slide, and the development of physical dependence we'll also deal with in the following slides. The occurrence of associative learning where stimuli linked with smoking triggered tobacco use. So the behavioral stimuli, the environmental stimuli, the environmental cues are also important factors in causing dependence and subsequent continuation of smoking. The speed and amount of nicotine delivery is dependent on the amount of nicotine in the product. So as I said, 10 to 12 milligram in an average cigarette. Cigars have the highest nicotine content, the alkalinity of the product, and the route of administration. So these three are the factors which are responsible for nicotine delivery to the brain. This slide shows the pathophysiology of smoking and nicotine transport, how immediately after taking a puff from a cigarette, the nicotine travels through the lungs and from there to the blood circulation, and within 10 seconds, it reaches to the brain. Now, what does nicotine replacement therapy does? So in the first figure, if you can appreciate, the inhaled nicotine is through a cigarette puff, and the nicotine reaches the brain within few seconds of it being inhaled through a cigarette. But in nicotine replacement, this mode of delivery is actually a bit slower, and therefore the effects on the brain are a bit different. So the brain does not reaches the stage where there is a craving or there are withdrawal symptoms. And this is the basic principle of nicotine replacement therapy. A small primer on how nicotine addiction actually takes place. Nicotine produces mild, pleasurable rush, euphoria, increased arousal, decreased fatigue, and relaxation upon its intake. So there are basically three phases of nicotine dependence. First is the acquisition and maintenance of nicotine behavior, which I just elucidated, that after nicotine acts on the nicotinic acetylcholine receptors in the brain, it produces mild euphoria, mild pleasurable rush, increased arousal, decreased fatigue, and relaxation. And this gives rise to a positive reinforcement, which helps in or which leads to the continuation of the smoking behavior. Now, the second phase is the withdrawal symptom upon cessation of nicotine intake. Withdrawal symptoms are not seen in individual who takes cigarettes, who inhale cigarettes off and on, but it is seen after chronic administration of nicotine use, which leads to neuroadaptation in the brain, upregulation of the nicotinic receptors. And then when there is a cessation of smoking or a decrease in the smoking frequency, the withdrawal symptoms actually present clinically. The third is the vulnerability to relapse. It has been seen, and most recently in a trial by Alpert et al. In 2013, which said nicotine replacement therapy does not work. Now, why did that trial reach this conclusion? After closer analysis and scrutiny, it was firmly concluded by another scientist that this trial had a lot of shortcomings or deficits. So vulnerability to relapse is seen in smoking people who smoke even years after they have stopped smoking. So relapse can occur due to environmental cues and due to behavioral changes that we often encounter in such people. The acquisition and maintenance of nicotine taking behavior is responsible most strongly with is associated most strongly with the genes like CHRNB3 and CHRNA5. These genes are responsible for 60 to 70% of the heritability that we see when a person initiates smoking. So initiation of smoking and continuation of smoking, that is development of dependence, is quite genetically determined. And the responsible candidate genes are CHRNB3 and CHRNA5. Then this diagram that shows how smoking or tobacco dependence actually progresses and on what factors it is dependent upon. During intoxication, drug-induced activation of the brain's reward regions that you see in blue, the thalamus and the globus pallidus. These two regions are these are the brain's reward regions, and during intoxication by nicotine, these brain regions actually fire up, and this lead to areas of increased sensitization, which are seen in the green areas. These are the orbitofrontal cortex and the prefrontal cortex and the anterior cingulate cortex. During withdrawal, the activation of brain regions involved in emotions in pink, these smaller regions, the amygdala, the hippocampus, those regions which are associated with associative memory. This leads to, when there are withdrawal or cessation of smoking, this leads to negative mood and enhanced sensitivity to stress. Now, during preoccupation, the decreased function of the prefrontal cortex. Now, prefrontal cortex, as most of you can appreciate, is the seat of executive function. It actually modulates our behavior and makes us human as it is known. So the decreased function of prefrontal cortex leads to an inability to balance the strong desire for the drug with a will to abstain. Now the person is trying to abstain as well. He knows that smoking is not good for health. His physician has asked him to abstain. But in spite of that, the strong desire for the drug, the craving, and the leads to a relapse and reinitiates the cycle of addiction. Now, these are some of the withdrawal symptoms that we see when the person who is dependent upon tobacco stops smoking. And this slide actually compares a placebo and one of the nicotine replacement therapy, that is nicotine gum. So as you can appreciate, the withdrawal symptoms that we see in post-cessation weeks are lower and with the nicotine gum and higher with the placebo. For example, impatience, irritability or anger, anxiety or tension, and excessive hunger. So these are actually the symptoms that we see in the craving phenomena. When the person stops smoking, there is increased irritability, there is low mood, anhedonia is there, irritability and anger issues are there, and there is increased hunger. And post cessation, it is also seen that the person undergoes weight gain. And nicotine replacement therapy can actually help in reducing that weight gain that we see after cessation of smoking. So how does NRT work? What are the basic principles of NRT? So this is a very simple illustration of how NRT works. Non-toxic forms of nicotine delivery system that we see with NRT, like nicotine gum, nicotine lozenges, or nicotine inhalers, or the transdermal patch. It helps to maintain stimulation of nicotine receptors, but in a lower, the threshold of stimulation is lowered a bit. So the stimulation, as compared to what happens when a person smokes nicotine through cigarette, that stimulation is quite high. But with NRT, the stimulation, the number of receptors that are stimulated are quite low. Therefore, this leads to downregulation, hence eliminating withdrawal symptoms and the sensations of craving for nicotine during a smoking cessation attempt. This is the basic principle of NRT. And the NRT, it depends on the delivery system. The nicotine's effects on the brain are a direct product of the delivery system that is in place. For example, cigarettes or a smokeless tobacco, chewing tobacco, and the nicotine replacement therapy. So this graph actually illustrates how the nicotine concentration changes in the blood vis-a-vis cigarettes and compared to other forms of NRT. So nicotine concentration is, after a cigarette puff, actually shoots up and then plateaus during the next few hours. But with NRT, this level of nicotine is maintained at a lower sub-threshold levels for a long time. Now, the pharmacokinetics of nicotine replacement therapy is quite important to understand. So you can help your patients clinically. The bioavailability of nicotine by cigarette smoke inhalation is close to 100% due to the large absorption area of the lungs and the nicotine's directly delivery to the brain through the pulmonary arteries and the heart carotid circulation. The bioavailability of nicotines by NRT is much less, as I already mentioned. And depending on the brand, the transdermal patch system offers a continuous release of nicotine over 16 hours or 24-hour period, as compared to an acute form of NRT like nicotine gum or nicotine lozenges. Oral NRTs provide smokers with a coping strategy when cigarette craving occurs. So psychodynamically, if you try to understand this ritual formation of puffing cigarette, this actually leads to changes in the brain circuitry and leads to a ritualization of an activity that one does quite a few number of times during the day. Now, oral NRT actually tries to substitute that ritualization, that hand-to-mouth action that a cigarette smoker does during the day. So this can also help aid in the smoking cessation therapy. The available delivery systems do not reproduce the rapid increase and high arterial plasma and brain concentration of nicotine achieved through the inhalation of cigarette smokes. NRTs only partially eliminate withdrawal symptoms. So even after taking NRTs, there are some withdrawal symptoms that the person experiences. Now, who should receive NRT? How do you select the patient population who would greatly benefit with NRTs? So there are only 2 points to keep in mind. The person who is actually in the contemplation or the action stage of motivation to leave smoking. And the second stage, and the second point to keep in mind, that he experiences withdrawal symptoms whenever he stops smoking. So first is the level of motivation, and second is the presence of withdrawal symptoms. Relative contraindications or cautious use of NRTs, these factors should be kept in mind, or these important contraindications. So relative contraindications: recent or less than 2 weeks of myocardial infarction, serious underlying arrhythmias, serious or worsening angina pectoris, TMJ disease, that is temporomandibular joint disease in cases of nicotine gum and lozenges. Pregnancy and breastfeeding, the data is not quite conclusive yet, but yes, it's a cautious use, it's a category D use therapy in pregnancy. Adolescents less than 18 years, the data has been inconclusive and it has not shown much benefit in adolescents. Because the thing to appreciate here is adult nicotine dependence is a bit different from adolescent nicotine dependence in terms of the neurotransmitters involved. These are the US FDA approved NRT formulations: the transdermal patches, chewing gums, lozenges, sublingual tablets, inhalers, nasal spray, e-cigarettes, high-dose nicotine patches, and combined patch therapy. I'm not sure that all of these products are available in India, but the transdermal patches, chewing gum, lozenges, and an oral spray. I'm not sure whether it's an inhaler or a nasal spray, but there is one oral mist spray that is available in India. And high dose nicotine patches and combined patch therapy is not available in India right now. So the experts that will follow this talk would definitely elaborate more upon nicotine gums and the patches and the transdermal patch. But I'll give just a brief introduction. Nicotine gum is a device where nicotine is in an ion exchange resin and gum base. Absorption occurs at the buccal mucosa. It is intermediate in CNS delivery speed, and the nicotine levels reach a peak in 20 to 30 minutes. And the dosing schedule, I'm sure the next talk would talk in detail about this, but largely speaking, the rule of thumb is dependent upon when the person takes his first cigarette after waking up in the morning. If it's less than 30 minutes after waking, then 2 milligrams the intake, the recommendation. I'm sure the next talk will talk in detail about this. So this the transdermal nicotine patch. It's quite a popular technique and the popular device that is used in the United States. Also quite popular in our country, and its use is being adopted now with much more acceptability as earlier. So it's a 24-hour nicotine delivery device with the dosage available is 21 milligram, 14 milligram, and 7 milligram. A new patch is applied each morning on different sites of the body, and rotating placement site can reduce irritation. So that is one side effect that is often encountered with the patches, that it may cause local skin irritation. The release is much more gradual as compared to the other nicotine delivery systems, and it is often underdosed because it leads to almost an average of 50% replacement of the earlier nicotine intake. Nicotine patch use follows a step-down approach. For the first 4 weeks, 21 milligram for 24 hours, then next 2 weeks, 14 milligram per 24 hours, then the following 2 weeks, 7 milligram per 24 hours. There have been a number of studies which have looked into prolonging this therapy to even 6 months or even 1 year after smoking cessation. And the results have been inconclusive because the number of studies have been few. But the recommended schedule of nicotine patch use is approximately 8 to 12 weeks. Nicotine inhaler is absorbed through oral mucosa, continuous puffing over 20 minutes per dose, 80 puffs over 20 minutes per dose, which deliver upon approximately 4 milligram of nicotine. 6 to 16 cartridges per day are used. It is the second most expensive method of nicotine replacement methods. Eating or drinking before and during administration should be avoided, and decrease delivery at cold temperature. So it is dependent on the environmental condition. Nicotine nasal spray is one of the fastest methods of NRT because it actually replicates what the person has, what the person experiences when he's smoking a cigarette. So the rate of delivery with the nasal spray is actually quite high. A dose is one spray, 0.5 milligram to each nostril. Dosing should be 1 to 2 doses per hour, not to exceed 40 doses per hour. And the usual dose is 12 to 16 nasal spray per day. Expect moderate to severe nasal and throat irritation early, and avoid in patients with severe reactive airway disease. Highest dependence potential of NRT. So this has to be kept in mind while administering to your patients. Now, e-cigarettes, this is the next frontier of nicotine delivery devices in NRTs, and e-cigarettes have been there since 2004 or I think 2002. And most of the recent research on tobacco and nicotine replacement therapy has focused upon the efficacy and safety of e-cigarettes. Although I must mention that e-cigarettes are currently banned in India, but its use has increased many folds in the Western world, especially in the United Kingdom and United States. The evidence is inadequate to infer that e-cigarettes in general increase smoking cessation. As I said, recent research has not conclusively proven that e-cigarettes are helpful more as compared to the conventional forms of nicotine replacement therapy. The evidence is suggestive but not sufficient to infer that the use of e-cigarettes containing nicotine is associated with increased smoking cessation compared with the use of.
Sir, a little time check, please. Your 20 minutes
Yes.
are over, so I'll just request you
Okay.
to quickly finish.
Okay. Thank you for the reminder. So the evidence is inconclusive for e-cigarettes. Now the evidence base, briefly 3-4 slides about the evidence base of NRTs that we have currently. So this was a Cochrane Tobacco Addiction Group review that was published in 2012. It gives the key characteristics and updates of the tobacco addiction group over the years and how this NRT or the Cochrane reviews have evolved over the years. Since the first version of the Cochrane review of NRT, this review has been updated regularly. The first version included 72 studies and now contains 150 studies of NRT. The review investigates different forms, delivery methods and settings, schedules and dosages of NRT in a range of subgroups and shows definitely that all commercially available forms of NRT help people to quit smoking relative to placebo. And the odds ratio of NRT versus placebo is in the range of 1.6 to 1.85. And the combination therapy that I'll talk in the next slide is actually helps improving this odds ratio or the abstinence rates in individuals after they undergo this therapy. So the first line drugs, the NRT versus placebo, as I said, the odds ratio are 1.58 and the reviews 111 studies. Bupropion is a little bit better, 1.85, but the best first line drug currently in terms of evidence is varenicline. But yes, the cost factor and the availability factor comes into play when we recommend one of the first line drugs like NRTs, bupropion or varenicline. Efficacy figures from US are similar, but I like to come to this combination NRT therapy, which has been recommended in the different guidelines around the world. Combining the long-term patch more than 14 weeks with a self-administered form of NRT is more efficacious than a single form. And most importantly, the odds ratio reached 3.6. And so it is twice or 3 times more likely to keep the patient or the smoker abstinent from relapsing. And it is one of the best relapse prevention strategies that we currently have in our armamentarium. So this is a Cochrane review, recent Cochrane review, which deals with the different doses, duration, and modes of delivery of nicotine replacement therapy. I'll skip this slide for the want of time, but I'll focus on the next 2 slides, which deal with NRT in special population, especially persons with mental illness and pregnant females. So there have been 2 major trials of smoking cessation in people with mental illness. One is the Scimitar trial, which is a pragmatic real-world trial carried out in the UK and published in 2019. And secondly is the Eagles trial, which looked at the neuropsychiatric safety and efficacy of all the first-line agents, including NRTs in smokers with and without smoking, with and without psychiatric disorders. So in a nutshell, smoking cessation becomes much more difficult in patients with persons with mental illness. And nonetheless, it's quite a difficult task in people without mental illness, and especially in people with mental illness, the issue of adherence comes into play. So, therefore, the results at the end of 1 year in the Scimitar trial were not very encouraging for people with mental illness. Now, next in NRT use in pregnancy, this is a very important issue, especially in the Western world, in the developed countries, and for smokeless tobacco in our country as well. Factors influencing, there have been 2 systematic reviews, both published in 2020, which said the key findings from these 2 trials are that advice from health professionals on NRT to the pregnant female is very important. When the health professional believes that the benefit outweighs the risk in starting NRTs, the females, all the pregnant females are also more adherent to NRTs. The women's desire to the second factor is women's desire to protect their unborn baby from harm. So it is generally believed, and it is true as well, that nicotine or smoking causes a great deal of harm to the developing fetus. So that concern can be taken into account when recommending NRT to the pregnant female. And the role of past experiences with NRT on motivation to use it in pregnancy. NRT used for smoking cessation in pregnancy may increase smoking cessation rates in late pregnancy. However, the data is still inconclusive, because if you can appreciate the ethical issues involved in carrying out such a trial in pregnant women. So the number of studies have been very few, which have looked into the NRT use in pregnancy. And so with this, I end the small presentation that I had, and I look forward to listening to the next speakers and also answering to your questions. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, sir. I think that was a wonderful overview on the NRTs. We have a few questions on the chat box. I'll please request you to please answer them. Otherwise, we'll take it in the open discussion towards the end of the panel. I'll now invite Pradeep sir to kindly give his concluding remarks.
Dr. Manushree Gupta, I think it was an excellent presentation. I think you started with chemistry and then you went on to different aspects of addiction, phases of addiction, what are the different NRTs available. You also gave us a view on evidence, and also you concluded with the special population, the use of and the latest trial, and especially you pointed out about the Cochrane review, which is a latest study. I think it was an excellent presentation. Keep it up, and we really look forward to you being part of this endeavor. And I would like to congratulate you for this excellent presentation. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you for the kind words, sir. Thank you.
Yes. And thanks to both Pradeep sir as well as Manushree sir. I think that concludes the end of the first scientific